The night is quiet, but the mind is not. Inside the skull, thoughts circle like restless wolves, chasing each other endlessly, gnawing at what could have been, what should have been, what might still come. The heart beats faster, not from danger in the world, but from shadows born within. This is a prison of overthinking, where silence is never truly silent, and peace feels like an illusion glimpsed but never held. Carl Jung once said that, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Overthinking is precisely that, an unconscious compulsion dressed in reason. It convinces the thinker that they are in control, when in truth, they are being controlled by the storm beneath. Imagine her, sitting at the edge of her bed, the lamp casting a golden glow on her face. She is strong, but her mind betrays her. Every word spoken by him, every silence left between them, every gesture, every possibility, she replays it, again and again, as though thinking one more time will grant her clarity. But instead of light, she sinks deeper into shadows. And now imagine him, the man burdened by duty and desire, staring into the darkness of a ceiling at night. His body is still, but inside, every mistake of the past becomes a burning brand. His anima whispers of what is lost. His ego refuses to forgive, and his soul grows restless. He tells himself he is analyzing, preparing, guarding. But in truth, he is bleeding energy into illusions that never arrive. Overthinking is the enemy of presence. It is the ego's endless war against what is. It is the shadow pretending to be wisdom. You, yes, you listening now, have felt this. The ache of a mind that will not rest. The spiral that begins with small doubt, then sharpens into obsession. The fear that if you stop thinking, even for a moment, something will collapse. But what if the collapse is the very thing your soul is waiting for? To stop overthinking is not to silence the mind with force. That only feeds the war. To stop overthinking is to see what lies beneath the surface, what drives the endless spin. Fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear of death itself. Jung knew that behind every compulsion lies an unspoken archetype. The orphan who longs to belong, the lover who fears abandonment, the warrior who cannot lay down his sword. When you begin to see overthinking not as you, but as a mask, you loosen its grip. You realize the thoughts are not truth. They are echoes. They are ghosts demanding to be acknowledged, but not obeyed. And in this realization begins the first way toward peace. A peace that does not come from perfect answers, but from surrender. A peace born not of certainty, but of courage. The courage to feel rather than endlessly think. The woman at the edge of her bed closes her eyes. The man staring at the ceiling exhales. And you, right now, can do the same. For peace is not somewhere out there, waiting to be found in another thought. Peace is already here, waiting for you to stop searching long enough to notice. Overthinking is never about the surface thought. It is about control. It is the mind's desperate attempt to build a fortress against chaos, to rehearse every possibility so that nothing unpredictable can pierce the heart. But the irony is cruel. The more you try to control life with thought, the more powerless you feel, for life was never meant to be caged. Carl Jung spoke of this when he described the battle between the ego and the self. The ego fears dissolution. It fears what it cannot predict. So it spins webs of analysis, imagining futures, replaying past, creating stories that exhaust the soul. Yet behind this obsessive control lies the archetype of the fearful child, the psyche's orphan, who trembles at the thought of being left unprotected. Picture her, the woman who rehearses every conversation in her mind before it happens. She measures every word, every gesture, afraid that one misstep will cause abandonment. Her overthinking is not logic, it is armor. But armor grows heavy, and in her effort to protect herself, she slowly drowns under its weight. Picture him, the man who cannot let go of what was said years ago. He replays arguments like records on a loop, convinced that if he dissects them enough, he will uncover some hidden truth that will soothe the wound. But the wound is not in the argument. The wound is older. It lives in the shadow, in the place where the child in him learned that mistakes meant rejection and silence meant danger. And now picture yourself, you who are listening. How often have you mistaken your overthinking for wisdom, when in truth it was fear wearing a mask? How many hours have you lost not to the present moment, but to the endless rehearsal of futures that never came? The grip of control has stolen from you the very thing you crave most, peace. To stop overthinking, you must dare to trust chaos. For chaos is not the enemy. It is the womb of creation. Jung saw that what we resist persists, and what we embrace transforms. When you embrace the unknown, when you allow the possibility of imperfection, you discover something astonishing. You do not fall apart. You expand. Think of the river. It does not overthink its course. It bends, it flows, it crashes against stone, it carries silt and debris, but it does not pause to analyze its path. And yet it always finds its way to the sea. Your life is the same. The more you trust the current, the more peace you will feel. The more you cling to control, the more the current will feel like drowning. He, the man lying in bed, finally closes his eyes and whispers, "Let it be." She, the woman rehearsing words, allows silence to speak for her instead. And you, perhaps this is the moment you unclench your jaw, drop your shoulders, and breathe. For the need to control is not strength, it is fear. And peace comes not when fear is conquered, but when it is held with gentleness and then released. Overthinking always feeds on what is unspoken. It thrives in silence, but not the sacred silence of meditation, the restless silence of oppression. Beneath the endless calculations of the mind, there are emotions that have not yet been given their place. A longing, a grief, a wound, a desire that remains unacknowledged. Carl Jung called this the shadow. The parts of ourselves we exile, the truths we bury because they feel too raw, too shameful, or too dangerous to show. Yet these exiled emotions do not disappear. They whisper in the dark. They knock on the walls of our minds. They slip into our thoughts dressed as analysis. Overthinking is often the shadow's cry for recognition. Picture her, the woman who convinces herself she is just being careful with love. She says she is protecting her heart, but in truth, she is afraid of her own need to be loved, to be held, to be chosen without condition. So she analyzes every message, every pause in conversation, every word from him, not because the words matter, but because her deeper hunger has been denied. Overthinking for her is not vigilance. It is starvation. Picture him, the man who insists he is only being rational. He believes logic will save him from heartbreak. But underneath his calculations lies the boy who once cried and was told to stop, the boy who learned that vulnerability was weakness. He overthinks not because the future is unclear, but because the present emotion feels unbearable. His logic is not logic. It is armor against feeling. And now picture yourself. How many of your thoughts are not thoughts at all, but disguised feelings waiting to be seen? How many times have you rehearsed a conversation? Not because the words mattered, but because the emotion beneath them terrified you. Overthinking is rarely about clarity. It is about avoidance. You avoid the truth of your own heart, and so the mind builds endless mazes to distract you from walking into it. The Stoics once said, "He suffers more who suffers before it is necessary." And yet, suffering before necessity is what overthinking truly is. It is pre-suffering, pre-pain, a way of rehearsing hurt, so that when it comes, you believe you'll be ready. But no one has ever been made stronger by suffering twice, first in imagination, then in reality. Jung would remind us, only when the shadow is integrated does the soul find peace. Which means you must not run from your emotions. You must sit with them. Instead of analyzing every gesture, ask yourself, what am I afraid to feel? Instead of replaying the past, whisper, what wound am I refusing to touch? For the moment you name the unspoken, the mind no longer needs to spin. The wheel stops turning when the truth is embraced. She, the woman in her solitude, finally allows herself to weep, and her thoughts grow quiet. He, the man hiding in his calculations, finally admits he is lonely, and the voices in his head soften. And you, perhaps this is the moment you stop searching for certainty in thought, and instead allow your heart to reveal what has been aching to say all along. Overthinking does not begin in the mind. It begins in the wound of attachment. The child once reached for safety, and safety did not come. The heart once longed for stability, but stability fractured. And so, the nervous system learned a cruel trick. If certainty cannot be found in love, then perhaps it can be manufactured through thought. Carl Jung knew this wound well. He wrote how the Anima and Animus, those inner opposites, the feminine within a man and the masculine within a woman, become distorted when a child's need for unconditional love is denied. The inner masculine becomes harsh, critical, unyielding. The inner feminine becomes anxious, clinging, unable to trust. And the mind, caught between them, begins its endless war of thoughts. Picture her, the woman who waits for his message. The phone is silent, and with every minute the silence deepens into terror. She tells herself stories. He has lost interest. He has found another. He never truly cared. Her mind spirals. But the spiral is not about him. It is about the ghost of the father who was emotionally absent, or the mother whose love came with conditions. Her overthinking is a reenactment of abandonment. Picture him, the man who cannot stop analyzing his partner's every word. He listens not for meaning, but for danger. He fears rejection before it has even arrived. He questions her tone, her silence, her pauses. But it is not her voice he is hearing. It is the echo of childhood, the wound of being told he was never enough. His overthinking is not vigilance. It is a defense of the boy who never felt safe. And now picture yourself. How often has your overthinking been less about the present and more about the ghosts of the past? How often do you project your old wounds onto the people who stand before you now? The anxious child, the abandoned child, the silenced child, they whisper through your thoughts, and you mistake them for truth. But they are not truth. They are memory. The Stoics urge us to live in alignment with nature, and nature does not rehearse betrayal before it happens. The tree does not wonder if the wind will break it. The bird does not overthink whether the branch will hold. They risk, they bend, they fly. Only the wounded human believes that thought can prevent pain. And Jung would remind you, individuation, the journey of the soul toward wholeness, cannot happen until these old wounds are faced. To stop overthinking, you must stop rehearsing the past and the present. You must dare to separate memory from reality. The silence of the phone does not mean abandonment. The pause in his words does not mean rejection. The delay in her eyes does not mean betrayal. They are only moments. It is your shadow that fills them with ghosts. She, the woman staring at her phone, whispers to herself, "This is not my mother's silence. This is only now." He, the man listening for danger, exhales and remembers, "This is not my father's judgment. This is only her voice." And you, perhaps this is the moment you stop mistaking the echoes of yesterday for the truth of today. The fifth way begins not with thought, but with the body. The ancients knew what Jung later confirmed. The unconscious does not merely live in the mind. It breathes in the skin, it coils in the gut, it trembles in the chest. When overthinking wraps its chains around you, your body is the first prisoner. Shoulders tighten, breath shortens, eyes dart in restless search. The body becomes a battlefield upon which thought and fear wage their war. But when you turn toward the body, not as a machine, but as a sacred vessel, a temple of instinct and memory, something begins to shift. Notice your hands, the curve of your spine, the rhythm of your lungs. These are not distractions. They are anchors to the present. Overthinking thrives a mind unmoored, drifting between the past regrets and the future's anxieties. The body, however, is always here, always now. Imagine a woman standing barefoot in a quiet garden. She bends her knees, presses her palms against the earth, and breathes deep. She is not trying to erase her thoughts. She is allowing her body to remind her of what is real. The soil beneath her nails whispers. Here, now. The air against her skin sings. You are alive not in thought, but in breath. In this archetype, the embodied woman is both warrior and healer. She does not fight her thoughts directly. She grounds them in the weight of her own being. And you, too, can step into her form. Feel your breath stretch. Feel your heart steady. Let your body hold you when your mind cannot. Because peace is not only a thought to be reached. Peace is a rhythm you inhabit. The sixth way is silence, not the absence of sound, but the presence of stillness. Overthinking is a storm, an endless clash of words within. Silence is not its opposite, but its container. In silence, thought is seen for what it is, a restless child, running, tripping, demanding. Silence does not scold. It does not argue. It simply watches. Carl Jung wrote of the self as the great totality, the center that holds both shadow and light. Silence is the doorway through which the self is heard. But most fear silence. They rush to fill it with voices, with screams, with noise, for silence unmasks the truth, the hollow places we avoid, the desires we bury, the wounds we dare not name. Yet silence is where healing begins. Picture a man seated beside a dark river at night. He hears nothing but the water and the echo of his own heartbeat. At first, his mind rebels, throwing memories like stones into the current. But gradually, the stones run out. The water continues to flow. And then he realizes the river has been speaking all along, not in words, but in presence, in archetypal language. Silence is the wise elder, the sage who does not instruct with commands but with gaze. When you sit with silence, you enter his circle. You learn patience. You learn surrender. You discover that not every thought requires reply. Not every question demands an answer. And here lies a paradox. Silence is not emptiness, but fullness. It fills the cracks left behind by overthinking. It teaches you to let go of the compulsion to solve. In silence, you are no longer the thinker trapped in his labyrinth. You are the witness, watching the walls dissolve. The seventh way is surrender, not defeat, not resignation, but the sacred art of release. Overthinking thrives on control, on the desperate need to predict, to secure, to grasp. Surrender unravels this illusion. It whispers that peace is not earned through endless analysis, but through the willingness to let the river carry you. In Jungian thought, surrender is a process of individuation, the moment when the ego bows to the self. The ego clings, convinced it must orchestrate every outcome, shield against every wound. But the self knows that life is both wound and healing, storm and sunlight, loss and return. To surrender is to allow the archetypal flow of existence to move through you without resistance. Imagine a woman standing at the edge of the sea at dawn. She has fought herself for years, every thought a battle, every decision a war. But now, she opens her palms to the horizon. She feels the salt air, the rising light, the immensity of what is beyond her. She understands, perhaps for the first time, that she does not need to hold everything. The sea will hold her. The sky will hold her. The self will hold her. Surrender does not mean you abandon effort. It means you release attachment to the outcome. It means you allow the mystery of life to unfold without strangling it with fear. The Stoics understood this too, that what is not within your control must be given back to the universe, or else it will poison your spirit. Overthinking is the refusal to trust. Surrender is trust embodied. Trust in your own resilience. Trust in the intelligence of the psyche. Trust in the deeper rhythm guiding all things. When surrender arrives, overthinking dies a quiet death, and in its place comes peace, not as a sudden victory, but as a slow dawn, rising softly, illuminating every corner of the soul. The mind no longer rages. The heart no longer trembles. The self smiles within, and for the first time, you feel whole. If these words have stirred something in you, if you felt the shadows loosen their grip, if even for a moment you breathe a little easier, do not let it fade. This is your invitation to step deeper into your own becoming. Subscribe, not merely to a channel, but to a sanctuary, a place where the feminine psyche is honored, where silence is medicine, where mystery is strength. Share this message, not just with others, but with the parts of yourself still waiting to be seen. Leave your thoughts below, not as comments, but as offerings, echoes of your own journey through shadow and light. Every word you write is a mirror, and someone else will find themselves reflected in your truth. Turn on the bell, not as another notification, but as a ritual, a reminder that you are choosing growth, choosing depth, choosing peace. Because the journey out of overthinking is not a single step, it is a path, and this space is the torch to guide you through the dark.